we're on the last page of the order of operation notes. So these three examples are all fractions. So one thing about fractions is they have what we call implied parentheses. So what that means is that even though we can't see it, we've got parentheses around the top and bottom. So what that means is we're going to take these problems, we're going to simplify the numerator and denominator first, and then we'll do that division at the very end. So you almost treat this like two separate problems. All right, so I'm just going to pick either the top or the bottom, and I'm going to work with that first. So I'm going to work with the top. I've got multiple grouping symbols, so I'm going to start on the inside. So I've got 12 minus, got a bracket, and then 5 minus. Inside my parentheses, that will be 4 minus 9. Okay, so sticking with the top, I still have multiple grouping symbols, so I'm going to stay on the inside. So I'm going to recopy. And then 4 minus 9 is negative 5. Okay, and I'm going to close out those. All right, so I have gotten this down to a single number. Now I'm ready to move to my outside bracket. So I'm still in that parentheses step. So I know that 5 minus negative 5 means 5 plus 5. So that numerator is going to become 12 minus, and then in my brackets I'm going to have a 10. All right, so finally in the numerator, I'm going to end up, I'm going to bring it down here, with 12 minus 10. So that's going to give me a 2 in the numerator. All right, so now I'm going to go back and do the same thing with the denominator. So I need to start with these grouping symbols right here. So here's where I started on the top. Here's where I'll start on the bottom. So 3 minus 4 is negative 1. So that'll be 7 minus negative 1 all raised to the 5th. Now the negatives here are very tricky. I'm going to bring down the 7 and the minus. I'm just going to bring that over. But if you think about negative 1 raised to the 5th, that's going to be negative 1 multiplied to itself 5 times. Now 1 multiplied to itself 5 times is still 1, but if we count our negatives, since there's 5 of them, this is going to come out to be a negative 1. So I've got the minus that comes over, and then this becomes a negative 1. So that's going to end up giving me 7 plus 1, which is going to give me 8. All right, so I finally get this simplified down to 2 over 8, and then I just reduce it. Okay, I can divide the top and bottom by 2. And that gives me a simplified answer of 1 over 4. All right, so same thing with number 9. I kind of work the numerator and denominator separately. So I'm going to start with the numerator. Notice my grouping symbols have a single number, so I don't have a parenthesis step in the numerator, but I do have an exponent. So negative 2 to the third will be negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2, and that will give me negative 8. And then 3 squared will be 3 times 3, so that will give me a positive 9. All right, so negative 8 plus 9, that's just going to give me a 1. So I've got the numerator. Now let's go back and do the denominator. I don't see any grouping symbols here, so I'm going to start with exponents. So I'll start right here. Notice that 6 is not in the parentheses. So it'll be 4 times 5 minus 6 times 6 is 36 plus 2 times 7. All right, so I've got parentheses and exponents. Now I want to go left to right doing multiplication and division. So here's my first multiplication. Here's my second. Since they're not connected in any way, I could go ahead and do those at the same time. So I'm going to do 20 minus 36 plus 14. So now I need to be really careful. I need to go left to right. 20 minus 36, signs are different, so I subtract. 36 is bigger, so I keep its sign. I get negative 16 plus 14. Again, the signs are different. I subtract. 16 is bigger, so I keep its sign. Okay, and I get an answer of -1/2. When you're dealing with negative fractions, you can write the answer with a negative up front, or you can keep the negative in the numerator, or you can keep the negative in the denominator, and it's the same thing no matter how you write that, so any of those are fine. All right, one more fraction, so let's start in the numerator again. So in the numerator, I don't see grouping symbols, so I'm going to start with this 4 to the third. So that will be 4 times 4 times 4. That would be 16 times 4, which is 64. So I get -22 plus 64. Those signs are different, so I would subtract. 64 minus 22 would be 42. 64 is bigger, so I keep the positive sign. All right, so now let's go back and do the denominator. Looks like I've got some grouping symbols here, so I can go ahead and do 3 minus 4. This might feel really familiar because I think we just did this one. That'll be -1 raised to the 5th. So we saw this on number 8. We know that -1 raised to the 5th is still -1, but I also have to bring down that minus. So it becomes 6 minus -1. That becomes 6 plus 1. So I end up with 42 divided by 7, and that one reduces down to just 6.